1 Court Street, Middletown, Connecticut. We may have just begun broadcasting live on the Judicial Branch YouTube site. And if anyone is watching that now, let me just explain that this is the meeting of the Committee on Guardians ad Litem and Attorneys for the Minor Child and Family Matters. I am Michael Albus, the chairperson of the committee. The meeting actually convened here in public session at 3:30 or 3:31 p.m. today. And the reason we just now are coming onto YouTube is that except for approving the minutes of the prior meeting, the only other business, or the next item of business, was an executive session, which was not appropriate to broadcast. So all you've missed, if you have been watching the branch streaming channel, is a roll call, the approval of the minutes, and a vote to enter executive session, which we have now ended and are back in public session to do the rest of the committee's business. So let's first take up the matters that were discussed in executive session. As to complaint number 1, is there a motion regarding the recommendation of the probable cause panel as reported in that executive session?
So moved.
So a motion to accept the recommendation and dismiss the complaint?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? And as to complaint number 1, the recommendation of the probable cause panel is accepted and the complaint is dismissed. As to complaint number 2, is there a motion?
I move the report be accepted.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, then all in favor. If you are in favor of accepting the recommendation of no probable cause finding and dismissing the complaint, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, then complaint number 2 also unanimously, like complaint number 1, the complaint is dismissed upon recommendation of the probable cause panel of a finding of no probable cause. And finally, complaint number 3, is there a motion to accept the recommendation of the panel of a no probable cause finding and dismissal of the complaint?
I move we accept the recommendation of the panel and dismiss the complaint.
Thank you. Mark, is there a second?
Second.
Danielle, second. Any discussion? All in favor of accepting the recommendation and dismissing the complaint? Say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, then unanimously on complaint number 3, the recommendation of the probable cause panel is accepted as a finding of no probable cause and the complaint is dismissed. The next item on the agenda is changes to the active list of persons qualified to serve as guardian ad litem or attorney for the minor child. And we have a few requests for reinstatement. Maybe I'll impose upon Damon to take us through those.
Sure, Judge, not a problem. The first one is from attorney Emily Thaler, who had submitted a request to be reinstated. She was removed from the active list back in 2015, and she is requesting reinstatement. She has taken, she did take the training, the original training that was offered, and at this time, again, she's requesting reinstatement. She has stated that she has met the criteria required of Practice Book 25-62, subsection B's, sections 1 through 6, and 2562C1, and said that she's willing to accept cases on a sliding fee scale.
Any questions? Is there a motion to restore Attorney Thaler to the approved list of qualified guardians ad litem and AMCs?
So moved.
Moved.
Thank you, Brian. Did someone second it?
Second.
Eliza seconds. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, it's unanimous that she is restored to the list.
Okay.
Next one, Damon.
Second request is from Attorney Scott Chamberlain. Attorney Chamberlain again came off the list in 2018 for failure to respond to the annual request for updated information. He stated that he's an attorney in good standing, licensed to practice law in the state of Connecticut, that he meets the criteria in Practice Book Section 2562, subsection B, sections 1 through 6. He's willing to take cases on a sliding fee scale, would be willing to contract with the Division of Public Defender Services, and has certified that he is in compliance with Section 2562, subsection C1, in regards to the maintaining the 12 hours of relevant training, including 3 or more hours in ethics within the last 3 years.
All right, thank you, Damon. Is there a motion to restore Attorney Chamberlain to the list?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Any abstentions? It's voted unanimously then to restore Attorney Chamberlain to the list. And we have one more, Damon?
We have 2 more, Judge. We received one we actually received one this morning.
Okay.
But of the original 3 that you were sent, the next one is from Attorney Mary Piscatelli Brigham, and indicates that her name was removed from the list because she failed to respond to a request. I believe that was also, she was removed in 2018. And she says that she now currently meets she meets the criteria in Connecticut Practice Book Sections 25-62, subsection B, sections 1 through 6. She does not take cases on a sliding fee scale. The one thing I don't have, it looks like, is the training, the update regarding the training requirements on this, Judge.
All right. Would it be appropriate if otherwise we are inclined to restore her, to vote to do that upon her presentation of the required information, or would the committee prefer to wait until we have that before we act?
I would be inclined to vote on her today, Your Honor. I happen to know Attorney Brigham. I know she's been acting as a guardian in our courts in the Waterbury court system, where I work a lot, for, 30 plus years. Extremely well regarded, I believe, by colleagues as well as the bench. And so my inclination would be to vote on that today.
All right. And perhaps what we could do is, if the committee were willing to authorize me, upon Damon showing me the response he gets, to authorize Damon without another meeting or another vote to restore her to the list. Someone like to make a motion to that effect?
I would hope that she be reinstated, subject to providing the appropriate documentation to Damon, then by Your Honor, Judge Albus.
I would second that.
Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? All right, then it's unanimously approved that she will be restored to the list upon demonstrating that she satisfies that requirement. And upon Damon's receipt of that, he'll contact me, and if all's in order, we'll give him a go-ahead without a further meeting to restore her to the list, which I think makes sense, especially in today's climate. We're not we'll get to that on our agenda about our next meeting, but it's not like we're having regular meetings these days because of the pandemic.
So, and I will inquire of Attorney Brigham if I can today. Otherwise, certainly first thing tomorrow morning.
All right, and then Damon, there's one more that came in.
There is. We received a request this morning. It's from Attorney Bonnie Lee McDonald, who's requesting reinstatement. She indicates that she believes her name fell off the list due to failure to respond. This was back she was removed in January 2019 for failing to respond to the annual request for updated information. She certifies that she is in compliance with Practice Book Section 25-62 subsection B, that she is willing to accept cases when payment is ordered on a sliding fee scale. And she also indicates that she is in compliance with Practice Book Section 25-62 C1, and that she certifies that she's completed 12 hours of relevant training relative to GAL AMC work within the last 3 years, 3 hours of which was in ethics.
Is there a motion to restore her to the list?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Right, then by unanimous vote, she is also restored to the guardian ad litem list. I believe that's the end of that agenda item. Is that right, Damon?
That's correct, Judge. We're all set.
So the next item is the 2020 request for updated information from individuals on the list of persons qualified to serve. Seems like we just did this like 1 or 2 meetings ago, which we probably did. But I guess the calendar didn't stop while everything else did. So, Damon?
No, it's as Judge Alba said, it's that time of year again, I guess is the best way to describe it. And I just wanted to get everybody up to speed, looking at probably a target date of November 13th to get the emails out to the folks on the active list asking them to please update their information and to certify that they're still in compliance with 25-62B 1 through subsection B. And this, since last year, we asked everybody, because it had been every 3 years, they have to certify that they've been keeping up with continuing education requirements. We won't need to ask that this year, so we'll be back to the little bit shorter email, and we'll get that out, and we'll ask for a response. Just before the holidays, probably December 18th will be the deadline to submit responses, and then at some point, into the new year, I'll bring the results back to you at that point in time.
David, did we? I think last year we did a reminder for those who hadn't responded. And what's your impression of whether that helped to avoid the need for reinstatements, or was too much of a burden?
Oh, it was not too much of a burden, Judge. I think I certainly think there was no harm done, and we can definitely do that again. I can seek to do that. Maybe around December 4th, something in that range. My
real question, and you can be honest, is I know with everything going on in reaction to the pandemic, you and Lauren have been overloaded with other duties. I don't want to add. I'm not sure how much work it takes for you to send out that second one.
No, I don't think it's a problem, Judge. I really don't. I'd be honest if I thought it was, but I don't think it's an issue. We should be able to take care of that.
All right. It seems to me, maybe there's other reasons, but it doesn't seem like as many people missed the list this year. At least if they did, they haven't realized it yet, because courts are operating differently, and they usually find out when a judge wants to appoint them and finds they're not on the list. But it's probably, anyone have any thoughts on that, whether it's worth sending a reminder before we drop them from the list? They should respond promptly to the first one, but things happen and email goes into spam and things like that. So.
I think it makes sense. I think it might maybe save time in the long run, you know, if you can get a few more people with the reminder that submit the requested information, you know, rather than having Damon have to deal with all of those emails asking what
Right.
happened and all of the other good stuff. So if it's not too much of a burden for Damon and his folks, it seems like maybe it makes sense.
Anyone
No.
else?
I see no harm, so.
But then, would anyone like to make a motion to authorize Damon to proceed with the request for updated information as he outlined it?
So moved.
Second?
Well, second.
All in favor?
Second. Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? All right, thank you, Damon. It's unanimously approved. The next item on the agenda is pre-service training, which was another casualty of the pandemic. As you recall, we were hoping to present a program in June that we weren't able to do. And I don't know that we're prepared or ready to have a long discussion of this today, but I don't want to lose sight of that issue. And maybe events since our last meeting, I know we talked about doing some things by video, if I recall, as part of the program to make it a little bit easier. One thought I briefly mentioned to Damon is maybe we try to come up with, if it's feasible, a completely online video presentation that we can just always have ready without a lot of more effort and without delay for people who wish to apply. And I know some of the training we're required to take as judges, even before the pandemic, if it were essentially the same presentation to anyone, we'd go online and there'd be a way of monitoring to make sure we viewed the whole thing. You couldn't proceed. You couldn't fast forward, for example. There was a checkpoint at each part of the presentation. So if someone wanted to take it, they'd have to take the whole thing, or to be clear that they didn't. But any preliminary thoughts on whether that's something we want to explore, or do we want to wait until we can do this at least partly live? The other alternative is partly in person, I guess the third alternative is a purely video presentation like this, only with a group of participants vying for places on the list. So any thoughts on which direction we ought to be headed?
Yeah, you know, if I might, I mean, I think, you know, it was certainly unfortunate, right, that we had the sort of the training date scheduled, and, you know, we're going to sort of, I think, just update the prior training that had been done and do it in person. I wouldn't have an issue in helping to coordinate a virtual training format. You know, I'm sure we could figure out the logistics of ensuring that folks who register actually, you know, participate. It's not as, you know, of course, it's not as ideal as an in-person training to be able to, you know, interact with the folks, but I think we could certainly do it. I guess the question would just be, I know there are certain folks, I don't think we have a huge list of people who are waiting to take it, but you know, it wouldn't hurt to try to coordinate it and schedule it. I know prior to the last meeting, we were talking with, I think, Justine and some others about just connecting with the prior presenters to see if we could iron out some, you know, and update the agenda and have them just represent. I'm sure that they would be, you know, agreeable to doing something virtually instead of in person. So I mean, I'm certainly willing to try to facilitate that. I don't know if Justine, you know, you and Liza on the committee, if you have any thoughts about it.
So one of the things that's very attractive about doing the videotaping is that then possibly it can be available to people as they need it instead of them having to wait to do it. I know that this year all employers, every employee had to take a sexual harassment training, and the way that the CHRO put it on was you had to be in attendance and take quizzes throughout, And then once you got to the very end, you couldn't fast forward. When you got to the end, it automatically generated a certificate for you. So if we could figure out how to have the training all put together and people can access it at their leisure when they can do it, that would certainly help the law center with the problem of having our interns get trained. That's very attractive to me to get it all taped and have it available.
And I think that we can certainly do it that way for sure. I don't know, and maybe we could try doing the recording of it. I would hesitate unless there's huge demand moving forward to just use that potentially as an option, only because it wouldn't allow for questions and answers as a live audience training type situation would allow. But I absolutely think as a next step, we could certainly do a live one via virtually, and see what what the demand looks like. I know some folks in Justine's shop would be interested in attending it, and I think I'd have to check. I'm not sure if most of you know, because actually she retired post pandemic. But Frances, who's like the guru of this training, she was very, very vigilant about making sure that people signed in, signed out, nobody left early, things like that. Anyway, she has since retired. She has literally driven off in a convertible to greener pastures. So Danielle Johnson is the quote unquote new Frances. I promise her I won't keep calling her that, but she'll be available too to assist us. And she has been with the division for some time and worked in our legal division, also assisting with training. So she can help us with it as well. So maybe what we could do, which we actually had talked about last time, but then again everything got derailed, we could maybe have a virtual subcommittee meeting with the training group, which I think we had intended on doing anyway. We can kind of hash it all out and then be prepared to come back virtually or otherwise to the full committee for an update and with some dates and see if it seems to be workable for the committee to have it. I mean, I don't think it would be unrealistic to try to set something up for, God, I can't believe it's November already. Yikes. I don't know. We'll have to think about check with the presenters and see when they're available, but it shouldn't take too long to reinvent the training and update it quickly.
Yeah. Liza, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I do. I mean, we've been using Zoom for all of our training. It's very easy to use, and you can you can run a report to see exactly how long someone logged in. So there's obviously the issue of you're logged in, but you could turn your camera off and you can walk away. So I know Frances would advocate that all cameras would have to remain on for the length of the training. So
you're channeling your inner Frances.
I do imagine. I mean, I think Justine, what you're saying is great. I imagine there's probably a cost behind, especially for this training, which is much longer than that sexual harassment training. There would be a pretty substantial cost in having that all, set up. But I mean, the Zoom is doable, and if we, just say that cameras have to remain on, and then we can run the report of how long they were logged in, I think we'd be able to verify that they participated in the full training.
And we might be able to do kind of a hybrid thing where maybe we do it once virtually live, but somehow record that and have that in the can for the next time, and supplement it with quizzes. And maybe even if we got to the point where it's solely online, that we still only offer it at certain intervals, and that at the end of it, there's a mandatory live question and answer session, either in person or virtually, depending on conditions at the time. But I think a lot of things like this, one thing the pandemic has taught us in the branch is there are some things that we probably can do more efficiently by video than in person, even if we could do it in person. I think there's certainly limitations, but there may be parts of it that are better. So there's a few options, I think.
Yeah.
But if we want to do this anytime in the next year, who knows what the future brings, but I think if we want to be sure we can do it, we almost have to plan it virtually, whether it's virtual live or something recorded and accessible online with kind of monitoring and make sure people really do it.
Yeah, I agree.
So, Susan, if you and your subcommittee are willing to do that, I think that's a great first step. And at some point, I guess we'll have to figure out, once we know what we want to do, who knows how to do it, and within the branch is available to do it, because that technical staff is certainly overworked and has been for 8 months now. But at least if we know what we want to do, we can find out if it's feasible, even if it isn't something they can prioritize right away. Anyone else have any thoughts or comments on that issue? All right. Then the next thing is schedule of future meetings. And I think we should assume our next meeting will be virtual like this one. And I don't know if it makes more sense to set one up now, set a date now, or to sort of wait and see when there's a need for it. If the subcommittee, for example, is ready to report to us, or if a complaint needs to be acted on. Damon, is there?
Sorry, Judge. It would be my suggestion that we try and meet at some point in January, just so that the list can be approved for 2021 once we have sent out the request for updated information and gotten all the responses back. I mean, that's the one. I mean, that's the that would be the one item of business in the new year that I know we would need to take care of. So, beyond that.
Does anyone see a need to schedule a meeting, barring some development that requires one, before January?
No.
And that would give the subcommittee some time to work, a few months almost. So I don't know that we can set the date yet. It may depend on a lot of factors, including the availability of someone to put this on YouTube if it's still virtual. So let's assume we'll meet sometime in January. Maybe when this meeting is over, if any of you have times that you know you're not available already in January because you have a trip that you haven't canceled yet, for example, maybe let Damon know. But otherwise, I think we'll just, Damon, unless you have a date in mind that you think will work.
No, I mean, I'm, pretty open. So it's fine. Folks can check their schedules. I mean, in this climate, there's always going to be something going on and whatever. But anyway, if everybody just wants to let me know if there's any bad dates, and Judge, that also gives you a chance to check, with Gina to see how your schedule looks, and so that we can find something that is the best case scenario for everybody.
All right. Well, let's leave it at that. And that leaves us to such other matters as may properly come before the committee. The only thing I'd like to mention, which I alluded to earlier in the executive session, is that Judge Graziani, since our last meeting, has attained the age of 70, which means he no longer has the same status as a Superior Court judge. He's now a referee, and we have a vacancy that's yet to be filled because under the practice book it has to be a sitting Superior Court judge. But I thought it might be appropriate if the committee felt to adopt a resolution thanking Judge Graziani for his time on the committee. He's one of the original members, and I certainly have benefited from his wisdom and his experience. I've talked to him personally, but it might be nice if the committee saw fit just to pass a resolution thanking him for his service and wishing him well. So would anyone like to make a motion to that effect, if you agree?
I would absolutely move. The judge had offered, I think all of us, so much wisdom from a different perspective than many of us have. I know I enjoyed sitting next to him at many a meeting. He'll be missed. I missed seeing everybody to start with, but I will certainly miss talking to him and hearing his pretty unique perspective and his creative approach to a lot of the things that we were trying to get done. So I would absolutely move that we pass that resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? And I will, maybe after the minutes are done and we have the wording of the resolution, I'll, on behalf of the committee, send a letter to them, letting them know that the vote was taken. I'll be happy to report that there was no opposition to the motion, as opposed to a 5-4 vote to.
Yeah. Split decision.
But I do want to publicly thank him for all that he's done for the family court in general, people of Connecticut, and his service to this committee. So thank you for that vote. Does anyone have anything further under this item? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Right. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for your time.
Nice to see everybody.
Wonderful to
Take
see
care.
everybody.
Stay well,
safe.
everyone.
Stay
Uh,